What's up, everybody? Big Sweet coming at you once again from Sweet Studios. So today, I wanted to do something a little bit different. I haven't been working on any new covers for quite a while. The last one we did was like 2-3 months ago. And then I went on vacation with my family. And then when I came back, I've been working on a lot of original stuff. First up, we were working on finishing up and releasing my old band's new single, Brand New Disease. Got that done, and then I've been working on some more original stuff with the singer from that project. We're working on a new thing, so we've been working on some original stuff with that. So I haven't really had a lot of time for the covers. Now, I do have a couple that I'm starting to work on, but they're not going to be ready for a while. So I wanted to do something in the interim just to get something out here. And if you watched when we released the last Sevendust cover, I had my buddy Brett on, and we went through all the albums that Sevendust has put out, and we ranked them. And if you remember in that, we had a really hard time, especially in the middle, trying to put a number on certain albums because they're all so good, and it's really tough. So I thought an easier, a little bit more fun way to do it would be to do a tier list. These videos are always fun. What we have here across the bottom is the now 14 studio albums that Sevendust has put out over the years, over the last 26 years? 26 years, damn. And then we've got our tiers up here. And if you'll notice, there is no F tier on this list. I did that intentionally because I don't think there's a bad Sevendust album. So I don't want to put an F grade on something that I think is good. You know what I mean? So we've got our A, B, C, D tiers, and then up here the S tier. That's the God tier, the creme de la creme, if you will. So we're gonna go through all these albums. I'm gonna try not to get too long-winded. I love this band. It's probably my favorite band in the world, and I can get off on a tangent talking about things. So we're going to try to work through these things as quickly as possible without getting too off topic. So let's just start it off right off the bat with 1997, the debut album, self-titled Sevendust. All right, now right out of the gate with this album, I heard the single Black in 97 when it dropped, and it immediately grabbed me. And you're gonna hear me kind of talk about that throughout this list about songs that really resonate with me and hooked me and pulled me in. As I said, I don't think there's a bad album here. I can listen to all of these albums through. There's no I don't hear a song and go, I don't like that song, I'm gonna skip it. I can listen to all of these albums, no problem, but there are definitely albums that have more songs that really resonate with me, that grab me and make me want to hit repeat and listen to that song over and over again. And that's kind of how I rack and stack these things, along with some other like X factors like nostalgia and stuff like that. But for the most part, it's based on how many of these songs on this album really speak to me, and with the debut album, you got Bitch and Black, big hits for the band. Obviously, there's some other great songs on here as well. Too Close to Hate, love it. My Ruin. Overall, it was a really raw and kind of rough around the edges album. I think there are definitely other albums that have a stronger track listing, if you will, but solely for the fact of this is the album that introduced me to Sevendust and immediately hooked me. There is a little bit of that, I guess, nostalgia X factor in here. Without that, I might put this album in a B or C tier, probably B. But just for the fact that this album is responsible for my loving this band, it's going to be an A for me. Maybe a little bit higher than it deserves to be, but that's just where it is for me. Moving on, we're going to go to Home, and again, I thought this was a step up in the band's songwriting. The first album was good. But like I said, rough around the edges. I think Home was a little bit more refined. Still kind of trying to find out who they were though and what their sound was. But man, there's some great songs on this album. No argument. Denial is probably one of the biggest songs the band has had. But for me, Waffle is probably, well, I won't say my favorite, but it's one of my favorite Sevendust songs ever. Love it. Every time I go see a show and they don't play it, it upsets me a little bit because I love that song so much. Rumblefish, another great song, just super heavy and chunky. I thought this album was a step up from the self-titled debut. Getting better, starting to find themselves a little bit. For me, this is an A as well. And then we move on to Animosity, and it's no surprise. This is going up here. This is the perfect album. This album really defined the Sevendust sound and what a Sevendust song is. And from front to back, this album's perfect. Not just for Sevendust. I think this is probably my favorite album of all time. If you're taking it from a point of like from start to finish, the quality of production, the quality of songwriting, the quality of the performances, this album is as close to perfect as I've ever seen. And this is my opinion. I've seen some of these lists that other people have done, and they have Animosity down on. I don't understand it. I get it. They're, different strokes. People like different things, but I don't see how this album is not at the top of anybody's list of Sevendust. But that's me. But there are so many great songs on here. Trust, Crucified, Christmas Day, Angel Sun, which is the only song that I've never been to any other show where the band played a song and makes me break down and cry like a little baby. That song just has, I mean, it's gained some new meaning with me over the years. Brothers and sisters I've lost in the military over the years. This song kind of became like a memorial, and when I hear that song, those kind of memories and emotions come back to me. But just the power of the song itself is already emotional, and you can see it on stage when those guys play it. Animosity. I could talk about Animosity forever, so I will move on. But it is S tier, God tier, damn near perfect album. All right, moving on to Seasons. This album, while really good, amazing songs on here, I felt like this was just a little bit of a step backwards, a little bit of a backslide from Animosity. Still, I mean, really good. Enemy is a phenomenal song. Broken Down. Suffocate, which is one of my favorite songs the band's put out. Love Clint Lowry's vocal work in the choruses there, and of course, Face to Face, which if you've ever been to a Sevendust show, you probably heard that song close the night out. They use it a lot as the closer. Although recently, I think they opened a show with it, that's crazy, but. That's one of those songs where I can hear it a million times. I've seen Sevendust more than I've seen any other band, and I've seen them play Face to Face at pretty much every show. I never get sick of it. I always want to hear it, and if I don't hear it, it's like, really? They didn't play that? So for me, Seasons it's solid A tier. Now, I can hear what everybody's saying already, like, oh, everything's A or better. No, it's not, and we're going to get to that. As I said, Seasons I felt like was a step down from Animosity. The next few, for me anyway, continued that backslide a little bit. And again, I'm not saying they're bad albums. I'm just saying, for me on a personal level, the number of songs on these albums that really spoke to me and hit me and pulled me in got fewer and fewer over the next few albums. Starting with Next. Now, part of this is due to the fact that this is the point in time where Clint Lowry left the band. Next, for me, seems like a very John Connolly-led album, which isn't bad at all. John's a phenomenal guitar player. He's a great songwriter. I love his solo stuff. But I don't know, like Clint hits me a little bit different. His songwriting style and his playing resonates with me personally as a guitar player. So when he left, the sound, to me anyway, changed a little bit. I think Next was a great album. There's some really, really good stuff on here. Hero is great. They recently played that at the last show I went to, which was cool. I hadn't heard that one in a while live. But yeah, like a lot of good stuff on this album, but it was a little bit of a backslide for me from the previous albums. And for me, this one is a solid B. It's a solid album, start to finish, but there was, again, less of those songs that really grabbed me and was like, I want to hear that again and again and again. I can listen to it all the way through. I don't skip songs. I like them all, but less of those songs that really, really grabbed me. Now, as I said, this was kind of a for me anyway. This seems like a John Connolly led album. Sonny Mayo, who had replaced Clint, I don't believe he was really part of the songwriting process on this album. He played guitar on it, but I don't think he really contributed to the songwriting on this one. Now, with Alpha coming up, that was the first album where he kind of contributed songwriting. And again, following that pattern, it was a little bit of a step back for me. This one for me it's a C. I like the opener, Death Star. Driven's pretty good. Overall, though, there's not a whole lot other than those that really grab me and pull me in and say like, oh, put that song on repeat. Again, good. I hate putting albums down here because it makes it seem like, oh, I don't like that album. That album sucks. No, it doesn't. It's good. All of these albums are good. They're not great for me. Now, I know other people that will take this album and put it way up here, and that's fine. Everybody's got their things they like. And I think some of that comes into when people were introduced to the band. So much like I said with Home, or with the debut album, I don't think it's as good an album as these two, but because it introduced me to the band, it ranks higher for me. And I think that's the case with Alpha and Next. Like, some people will put these a lot higher, and I think some of that is due to that's maybe when they were introduced to the band. So that's just where it is for me. Good album, just not as good as the prior ones. Moving on now to Chapter 7, Hope and Sorrow. This was a weird album for me. I had started to drift away from my Sevendust fandom, I guess you could say. These albums up here, I was all in. I'm craving more and more and more. But then after Alpha, I was like, I don't know. Like, I don't know where we're going from this. Hope and Sorrow was getting ready to come out, and right before the album dropped, they announced that Clint was coming back. Like, the album hadn't even come out yet. Clint wasn't part of the album, but then they announced that Clint's coming back, and I was super excited for that. But then I found out that he wasn't on this album, and I was like, well, that's kind of weird. And it was almost like they didn't really push this album very hard. And maybe that was because of that fact that, they had that turnover there. Clint was going to come back, but this wasn't a Clint album. So maybe they just didn't push it as hard. I don't know what the case was, but it's just weird for me. And this album, out of all of the albums, is my least favorite. A lot of people love it. And again, different strokes. There's just nothing on this album that really stands out and grabs me and makes me want to listen to it. If I have this on, if I pull up a Sevendust playlist and something off this album comes up, I'm not skipping past it. It's good, but I'm not going to this album if I'm in a Sevendust mood, if that makes sense. So for me, it's the one and only D tier album that Sevendust has put out. So yeah, we've had this downward slide from the peak at Animosity, Seasons, a little bit of a step back. Next, a little bit of a step back. Alpha, a little bit of a step back. And then we kind of hit the bottom, if you will, with Hope and Sorrow for me. But now, here's where we turn it around, because Clint Lowry's back in the band now. And when this album came around, I was like, I am buying it. I didn't wait to hear singles. Back in this day when you had to go and buy a CD or, a cassette, a little bit earlier than that. But when you had to go buy an album to listen to it, like, I would usually wait until I'd heard 3 or 4 songs on an album before I decided if I was going to go buy it. Because I got burned a lot where I heard one good song and then I went out and bought the album and that was the only good song on it. So at this point in time, I tended to wait until I'd heard a few songs to buy an album. I did not wait to buy this album. I went out and bought it the second it came out because I knew Clint Lowry was back and I was super excited about that. And right off the bat, it did not disappoint. Splinter just came out and smacked you in the face. Probably my favorite opening song ever. Not just Sevendust. Like, that song was just fucking perfect. It was fast. It was heavy. The guitars, the vocals, Morgan's drums and his screams in this song. Man, it was just phenomenal. And this album launches them back up. I don't think it's quite enough to put it into A tier. I know some people put it in A tier. For me, it's a solid B. While, like I said, Splinter, great opener. There's some good songs on there. Strong Arm Broken, which they played again recently. Again, super excited to hear an older song like that. That's kind of a deep cut, played live. It was awesome. But I still don't think it's on the level of these guys up here. Huge rebound, back up into the solid Bs, but not quite enough for me to get it up into A. So after that, we have Black Out the Sun. Another, again, solid album. Really good songs on this one. Decay, probably one of my favorite songs on this album. Murder Bar's great. Solid album. Not top tier for me, but definitely solid. Got some really good songs on there. This one is a B as well for me. The next album is a little bit weird for me. Time Travelers and Bonfires. It's I debate putting it on this list at all. It's an acoustic album, and the first half is new, original acoustic songs, but then the second half of it is just acoustic versions of previously released songs. Now, I love acoustic guitar work. I love hearing acoustic versions of non-acoustic songs. I think the composition of everything and how they change things up to make it work acoustically. I love that process, and I love hearing that stuff. But this, I don't know, this just seems less like a studio album and more just like a one-off kind of thing. But it is included in their catalog of studio releases, so I included it in the list. It's like I said, it's weird for me though. I would almost rather it just be a collection of acoustic versions of previously released songs, or just give me a whole album of acoustic songs. The mix of the two makes it feel less like a studio album to me. You know what I mean? I like the stuff that's on it, but for me, it's a B just because it's weird. It's a weird album for me. I don't know. I can't explain it. That's just what it is. So yeah, it's a B. Next up, we got Kill the Flaw. Now this for me was a little bit, going back to that original downslide we started to have. This album kind of mirrored that for me a little bit. I'm not as big a fan of this album as a lot of the others. It does have some great songs on it. I mean, Thank You, obviously one of the bigger hits the band has ever had. They were nominated for a Grammy. Great song. Love it. Death Dance is great. There's good stuff on here, but I don't know. I felt like it was a little bit of a step backwards again. This one for me sits in the same tier as Alpha. Which is kind of disappointing. I'm like, oh man, we just had this, triumphant return of Clint and Cold Day Memory was great. Blackout the Sun was great. And then it was like, this one is not as great. And it was a little disappointing. But then we had All I See Is War. And for me, I'm not even going to beat around the bush here. This is up here with Animosity for me. And some people think I'm crazy for that. I think this is one of the best albums that they've ever put out. I don't think it's as good as Animosity, but it's as close as you can get to Animosity. This album is so underrated, it's not even funny. I love it, start to finish. Great opener with Dirty. God Bites His Tongue, one of my favorite songs. Like, start to finish, there is not a song on this album that I dislike. And, Morgan in Kill the Flaw, I felt like his vocals, like his screams and stuff, was a little bit lacking in Kill the Flaw. Like, he kind of took a step back on the vocal duties. And man, he's back with a vengeance on All I See Is War. His screams in this make these songs so much better. Just the way when he decides to throw these things in there, and it just like perfect accents to what LJ and Clint are doing on their vocals. Phenomenal album. If you haven't really given this album as much of it, go listen to it. Like, sit down and really listen to this album. It is phenomenal, start to finish. It's S tier for me. It's the second best album that they've ever done. It is a great album. All right, enough of that. We're going to move on to 2020. Yes. Yes, 2020. What a great year. Music for me has always been my outlet, my therapy, if you will. Be that playing music, going to live shows, whatever it is. Like, music is my therapy. And in 2020, a lot of that was taken away. Everything was taken away from everybody. You couldn't visit your friends. You couldn't visit family members that were in hospitals. Everybody just had to basically sit at home and do nothing. A lot of people suffered through, depression and mental illness stuff in that year. And for me in particular, like that was a tough year for me. Not having that outlet of being able to go to shows or whatever the case was. Even in my own playing, I got into this funk where I didn't even want to play. It was, I don't know, it was like what's the point kind of thing. So I was kind of in a weird place, mentally. And then I heard that, this album was going to drop, and I was like, well, that's cool. Like, haven't had, I loved what they did with All I See Is War. Haven't heard something in a couple years. So like, let me download this album and take a listen. And man, it was exactly what my soul needed at that point in time, to kind of break me out of that funk. And it was weird because, the last live show I saw before the world shut down was Sevendust. They were touring on All I See Is War. And then the very first show that I saw when the world started to open back up was Sevendust again, touring on Blood and Stone. And at one point in the show, LJ was talking about how there was a lot of people that were urging them to wait to release this album. The world shut down, you're not going to be able to tour. You should wait. And, they decided that no, the people needed new music, needed something to get excited about. And for me in particular, that was 100% true. Like this album coming out, it did wonders for my mental health. Kind of got my creative juices flowing again and got me back into playing. So I'm 100% thankful to the guys for disregarding that advice and following their hearts and releasing this album. Because, man, like I said, it was what I needed. Solid album. Opening up with Dying to Live, great song. Blood from a Stone. Obviously I did a cover of Kill Me, probably my favorite song on that album. The Soundgarden cover, Day I Tried to Live. At one point in time, I probably would have put this in A. But looking at the other albums that are there, I don't quite think it's that level. I think it's a great album. The sentimental reasons, like the what it did for me at that point in time, could potentially bump it up into that tier. But I think if I'm being honest, it's a B tier. It's a solid album through and through. I got no problem putting it in B. It could be an A, but I think it's a B. And that leads us to 2023, Truth Killer, right there. This album, I was super excited when I heard they were writing it. Lots of teasing, months out, lots of waiting around, and they released some singles prior to the very first one, Fence. I dug it. I liked the song, really, fast, kind of driving song, heavy. The video they did for it was great. The claymation, zombie performance kind of thing. I thought that was fun. Really dug it. Then they dropped Everything, which, in my opinion, Everything's one of the best songs on the album. I think it's great. Then they did a couple more. What was it? Holy Water, I think, and Superficial Drug. Yeah, Superficial Drug was the other single. So I heard a few songs on it prior to the album dropping. Knew I was gonna get it when it came out. Ordered the vinyl. Really cool vinyl, by the way, like glow in the dark. It's great. But when it came out, when it dropped, I put it on, and man, I didn't know what to think right off the bat, because they kind of went against tradition with this album, and they opened it up with I Might Let the Devil Win, which is, it's a weird kind of slow, vibey kind of thing. In the past, like Sevendust has traditionally opened albums with like bangers. I mean, like you get like Splinter and Dirty, Black, Death Star, Dying to Live, just came out the gate smashing. So to hear this song, like really kind of slow and vibey, I didn't know what to think. I was like kind of on the fence about on the fence, fence. No, I was kind of on the fence about the album, and I was like, I don't know what to expect next. But the song built, and by the end, it was like LJ comes in with his strong, powerful vocals. The band comes in. It ends on a higher note, but it was like a majority, like a kind of slow, soft, kind of vibey thing. But then Truth Killer drops, and it's like, okay, all right, I get you now. We're back in Sevendust world again. And then it continued with Won't Stop the Bleeding. Super, super good song. Everything following that, No Revolution, and it just keeps going. So many good songs on this album. I sat with this album for a really long time, trying to decide where I would put this. Now, when me and Brett did our live stream, it was shortly after this album had dropped, so I hadn't really listened to it a ton, and I had it probably lower on the list because I didn't know it enough yet. But now that I've sat with it for a while, I've listened to it a ton. This album for me, it's an A. I don't think it's at the same level as Animosity or All I See Is War, but it is a solid A. Great album. I don't know how these guys keep doing it. 26 years, 14 albums, and they're still killing it. These dudes are 50 now, and go see them live, and they'll blow anybody off the stage. I've seen them more times than I can even count. I've seen them more than any other band I've seen. I just saw them a couple weeks ago. I'm going to see them again in February. Going to get Clint's guitar. Yeah, I'm one of them dudes. But yeah, so there's my list, or my tier. The absolute creme de la creme up here, cream of the crop. A tier, outstanding albums, solid list of B tiers. And then, like I said, I don't mean to say these are bad albums. They're not bad albums. Like I said earlier, though, like if I have a Sevendust playlist going and these songs come on, I'm not skipping past them. They're good. I'll listen to them all. But if I'm in a mood and I say, man, I want to listen to some Sevendust today, these are probably not the albums that I'm going to reach for originally. I'm going up here, Again, one man's opinion. I've seen a lot of these lists that vary greatly. So everybody's got their opinions. Everybody's got their favorites. The only one I will tell people they're wrong on is Animosity. If you put that anywhere other than the top, you're wrong, and just know you're wrong. But that's all we got today, guys. Hope you enjoyed this, and stay tuned. We got some more stuff coming up, maybe even another Sevendust cover coming up here in the future. Got a couple things in the works, and we'll see how things pan out, but stay tuned. If you like what I'm doing, hit that like button, subscribe, stay tuned to all the new things that are coming out here in the future, and we will catch you guys next time.